Welcome to this quiet, boring tale of history. Today, we will talk about the winters of medieval Europe, when the cold was so harsh that people fought a daily battle just to stay alive. This video is for you, so you can relax, lose yourself in history, and slowly drift into the world of sleep. Imagine you are in a medieval village. Outside, a thick blanket of snow covers the ground. The air is so cold that your breath turns into clouds. Inside the house, a small fire burns, but the cold still cuts through your bones. This was the reality of medieval winters. We will find out why these winters were so cruel, the cold climate, weak houses, lack of food, and the many challenges that tested people every winter. So, take your blanket, lie down, and let's begin. Outside, the village is covered in snow. Small wooden houses, their roofs heavy with snow. People are trying to gather firewood, but the wind is so strong, their faces have turned red. The nights are long, and the sun appears only for a few hours. Winter was not just about the cold. It was a challenge that tested people's patience and strength every year. The village was quiet, snow-covered, and isolated. People stayed trapped inside their homes, sitting by the fire, fighting the cold. Imagine a small village where everything is covered in snow. The roads have disappeared. People sit inside their homes, trying to light a fire. Children are wrapped in blankets. The wind whistles through the cracks in the windows. This was winter in the Middle Ages, a battle that returned every year. In the Middle Ages, from the 5th to the 15th century, winters in Europe were already harsh. But in the 14th century, something changed. A climatic event began, which we now call the Little Ice Age. Temperatures dropped far below normal. Rivers that flowed in summer turned into sheets of ice during winter. The Thames River in London froze so solid that people could walk on it. In some places, markets were even held on the ice. But this cold wasn't just fun, it was dangerous. Crops were destroyed by the cold. Wheat, barley, and rye, the main food sources, either failed to grow or were ruined by frost. Fields turned to mud. Snowstorms and cold winds cut villages off from the outside world. Imagine a farmer waking up in the morning and looking at his field. A thick layer of snow has covered everything. The grains he had sown with hard work are now ruined. The air is so cold that his fingers have gone numb. People were trapped in the snow. Trade came to a halt. Supplies couldn't reach villages. People feared when the next harvest would come. In winter, the sun was visible for only a short time, and the cold nights felt endless. A merchant, who used to go to the city to sell grain, is now stuck in the snowy paths. His cart is buried in snow. Horses are shivering from the cold. People in the village are waiting, but no supplies are arriving. Fear grows. How will they get food? Sometimes the snow was so thick that horses and carts got stuck in the roads. People were forced to stay inside their homes. This isolation made them even weaker. News couldn't reach the villages. People had no idea what was happening in the neighboring village. A small village where no one has gone outside for weeks. Snow has covered the roads. People are sitting inside their homes, lighting fires to fight the cold. Children are listening to stories, but everyone has the same question in mind. When will this winter end? Now let's step inside a medieval home. The homes of the poor were made of wood, mud, or straw. The walls had cracks through which cold air would enter. Windows were covered only with wooden shutters or thin cloth. The cold would come straight into the house. The stone castles of the rich were slightly better, but their chimneys failed to expel smoke properly. Rooms would fill with smoke. People kept coughing, but lighting a fire was necessary to survive the cold. Imagine a small house, its walls made of mud and straw. Snow is piled on the roof. Wind is whistling through the window. The family sits near the fire, but the warmth only reaches a few inches. Poor people lit small fires. Gathering wood was difficult because the forests were covered in snow. Burning wet wood created even more smoke. Often, people slept with their animals because the warmth of cows and sheep saved their lives. A farmer goes to the forest in the morning. He sinks knee-deep into snow to chop wood, but the wood is wet. When he brings it home and lights it, smoke fills the room. The children are coughing, but it's impossible to put out the fire. Sometimes there was also the risk of fire. A single spark could burn down the entire house. Thatched roofs caught fire easily. Still, people couldn't live without fire. One night, a spark floats through the air. The thatched roof catches fire. The family runs outside, shivering in the cold. The fire took their home, but the cold is even more dangerous. The biggest problem during winters was the lack of food. In the medieval period, people relied on farming. Nothing grew in winter. They stored grains, vegetables, and meat during the summer, but storage techniques were poor. Grains would rot. Rats would sneak into the granaries and eat everything. In one granary, there are piles of grain, but due to moisture, the grains are rotting. Rats come quietly at night and eat the remaining grains. The family is hungry, and winter is far from over. Famine dévastatait le village. Children and the elderly were the first to die. People were forced to eat roots, tree bark, or even grass. The rich had slightly better food, but even for them, fresh fruits or vegetables were a dream. A mother looks at her children. Their faces have turned pale. The granary is empty. She brings some roots from the forest, but they are bitter. The children are crying from hunger. Because of famine, theft increased. People would steal grains from their neighbors. They had to pay taxes to feudal lords, even if they had nothing. Tension rose in villages. In a village, people quietly sneak into a neighbor's granary at night. The feudal lord sends his soldiers, who snatch grains from the hungry farmers. There is despair everywhere in the village. Cold and moisture in winter invited diseases. Cold, pneumonia, and respiratory illnesses were common. Medical knowledge was limited. People depended on herbs or prayers. There was no cure. Clothes could not protect from the cold. Poor people wore thin woolen clothes, which became useless when wet. Rich people wore fur, but staying outside too long was dangerous. People wore multiple layers to fight the cold. A family is sitting near a fire. A child is coughing. The mother is boiling herbs, but it doesn't help. It's so cold outside that clothes are getting wet. People are struggling with cold and illness. To escape the cold, people slept near the fire. But the combination of smoke and cold made illnesses worse. The poor had no fur. They shivered in old, torn clothes. A farmer walks into the forest wearing old woolen clothes. The clothes are wet. He is shivering from the cold, but he cannot stop. He has to collect wood. Winter was not only physically but also mentally exhausting. Short days, long nights, and darkness made people feel depressed. Candles and oil lamps were expensive. Snowipas isolated village. People gathered near the fire. They told stories. They sang songs. This unity was their strength. A family is sitting near a fire. Grandpa is telling old stories. The children are listening, but the cold and darkness outside feel scary. There is no news from the village. People are just waiting. People supported one another. Stories and songs gave them hope. This togetherness is what gave them the strength to survive winter. People are laughing in the warmth of the fire. An old man is singing a song. The children are lost in his voice. The winter is harsh, but this moment is keeping them alive. This was the story of medieval winters. Cold, famine, and isolation tested people every year. Yet, They survived by standing together. Now, lying in your warm blanket, remember this history. Slowly drift into the world of sleep. Imagine you're in your warm bed. A gentle breeze blows outside. Medieval winters are now just a story. You are safe. You're comfortable. This history teaches us how strong humans can be. People fought winter and survived. Now you rest. Subscribe and tell us in the comments what else you'd like to hear. Good night.